Hey friends, welcome. If you are tuning into this podcast, then chances are you are going through this exciting and yet overwhelming journey of buying, selling, or mortgaging your place. My name is Sat Manju. I am a professional in real estate and mortgages industries today in Fraser Valley, British Columbia. Before I became a professional, I have been in your shoes as a client to many realtors and many mortgage brokers. Over the past 30 years or so, we made some deals where some I did good in and some, unfortunately, I did not do that well. And some deals kind of taught me some lessons. And I remember thinking to myself, only if I would have met professionals who would have offered some insight and information to me at the front end of that deal, I would have made little different decisions and therefore would have had different outcomes. So when I became a professional, I brought those experiences and remembered how I felt like being in your shoes. So today, one of the first things I love to do for new people we meet, especially those who don't know us yet, is kind of open the window a little bit, like remove the curtain, let you see on the other side of the equation, let you see into the professional world a little bit, so you understand, okay, how do things click and work on this side, and being on my side, what do I need to do to make sure that other side, which is professional world, plays to my favor so that I can come ahead in this deal. Well, the reality of the matter is that whenever you're doing a real estate deal, a lot depends on who is leading you through. I have seen deals becoming extremely successful. I've also seen deals unfortunately falling apart and failing. I have seen some people having exceptional results, and I've also seen people with exceptional propositions or properties in buying or selling kind of having to settle for average or less than average results, all based on who were they dealing with. So that's one thing we want to talk about briefly in this podcast. Secondly, I want to talk about a very important and crucial subject that often gets overlooked. I mean, you as a client probably are busy looking at properties and negotiating and trying to see how the money is going to work, how your family is going to settle. And professionals, on the other hand, are busy sending you ads and marketing and telling you how good they are and how polished the websites are. And they are trying to kind of get you to sell and buy quickly from them as well. So you're both kind of busy in that work. But what happens is, in that race, one of the important and crucial element called trust gets overlooked. And nobody gives enough time for this trust to develop between a professional and a client. And it happens from both sides, not just professionals. It also happens from client side. But the trust doesn't get developed. So therefore, when professional needed to say something that could benefit you long term, because that trust isn't fully developed, they end up not saying it. And who loses from that missing information? The client, right? And clients are in the same boat. When they're dealing with the professionals, there is something that they're not saying, but they don't want to hurt the relationship, so trust isn't there quite yet for them to be able to say something, and they don't end up saying it. And who hurts in that proposition? You as a client. So no matter which way the trust doesn't get built, the party hurting most in this case is the client. So I always have wondered, coming into the industry from a client's point of view, is why do nobody talks about trust building with the client? Well, I did a little bit of research on it and study on it. And what I found is most people think about rapport and likability of the professional as trust. Most people confuse those two. Likability and rapport is a great start, But trust is something far bigger and deeper than just likability and trust. Now, when trusts are high, deals are very profitable, they're smooth, they're stress-free. When trust is average, the profits are average, deals are average, and experience is average. When trust is low, unfortunately, deals suffer. This subject is so important that I've wrote a PDF on it, and I've also recorded a podcast on this subject alone. As a third party, there is a great book out there called The Speed of Trust, written by Stephen Covey. If you don't know much about why trust matters as much and why I'm talking about this openly and upfront, you should probably pick a copy of that book and read through. And what you're going to find is trust is absolutely the key element to your success. Now, as I said earlier, most people confuse trust with likability and rapport. So when they like a professional, they have a bit of a rapport with them, they end up working with them, but the trust hasn't developed, and that undersurface kind of left out foundation then end up not giving you so good of a result. So that's one thing I want you to pay very close attention to. Make sure you are developing trust with the individual. Now, trust is one thing that can't go one way. It's not that you wanted to build trust and you can go do it. Trust has to flow from both sides, right? Professional has to be equally excited and engaged in building trust with you. Whether they have known you for years, this does not mean there is trust for the deal in there yet. So how does that trust kind of come to play? Well, trust kind of happens over 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 meetings and conversations. You notice things like there is consistency in the messages. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're offering the advice and guidance that could benefit you before it benefits anybody else. And if there is really truly some options available for you that may or may not work that well in the favor of getting that quote-unquote sale, they still like to talk about it and openly put it on the table for your consideration. If you're noticing some of those things, then you're probably on your way to build trust, but it hasn't there fully yet. So there is more you can do, but that would be a good start. Second point I want to talk about is whenever you are looking to do any big deal, especially something like this that is probably one of the biggest deals of most people's lifetime, then you want to make sure you're working with the professionals who are not only likable, not only have good rapport with you and you feel comfortable around them, but they're actively engaged in building trust with you. And more importantly, they are capable and willing to help you succeed, not just with the sale, but way beyond that sale. I'm talking about setting you up today so that your next real estate move that you're thinking about 5 years down the road becomes easier. Whether it is going from a small house to a bigger house, or it would be kind of selling out your big property and settling into a little townhouse for your retirement, or whatever the case may be. Usually most people have a goal beyond a goal. And that goal beyond the goal only becomes possible or can be very fruitful if you do things right in this sale. Plus, lots of professionals who are very successful at this game, they tend to have very high level network. Network not just with other realtors, but network with all sort of people. Network with high caliber accountants, high caliber lawyers, notaries, home inspectors, environmentalists, even all the way down to great cleaners who come and help you with your property and declutter everything. They have this network built with great professionals. And the reason that is important because your professional's network will become your net worth in that deal. I've seen this playing time and time again. So as a client, you might be wondering, well, all these professionals, everyone who talks to me in real estate or mortgages, they all the same, aren't they? Because after all, this is how it's talked about in the advertisements that I get. Like everybody tells me how they're great. Everybody tells me how polished they are. I even know 2 or 3 people from my past experience, or my aunt used them, or this friend at my workplace who happened to be dabbling with real estate and mortgages part-time. How do I pick one over the other after all, or do they not all do the same work? Well, let me ask you this question. Whatever profession you are in, I'm sure there are multiple people doing the work that you do in different places. Even though they're doing the same work, do they all do it the same way? You're probably going to say, well, of course not. Well, real estate and mortgages are exactly the same. Even though everybody is selling and buying and helping clients with the properties, not everybody does it the same way. And the way one professional handles things over the other professional, how they handle things, could make a night and day difference in your overall experience. See, one thing about real estate is these deals are so big. Some of them are going to cost over $1 million mark. When you talk about buying, selling, and mortgaging, combine it, your total tally of money being moved could easily be over $1 million. Sometimes it's multi-million dollars. Even 1 or 2% difference in that amount of money could be thousands of dollars, if you know what I mean. So even if you could get an advantage on your side for 1 or 2%, that means some big change, or big change, sort of like big money change, I meant to say, right? Like it's not something to kind of overlook. So as a client, you always want to make sure that you're partnering yourself with people who have that long-term aspect of business, see beyond this one sale, and willing to take you through a journey that sets you up for future. Now, you may have already heard about this, may not, but there are 6 key principles that play out on all sales, buying, or mortgages or properties. And these 6 principles can set you up greatly towards your success. What I find is most everyday people utilize 1, sometimes maybe even 2 at the most of these 6 principles. But your real success becomes when you can apply more than 3 or more principles in your deal. Now, here's the irony. Most everyday families don't even know what those 6 principles are. Now, if I started talking about that in this podcast could be another half an hour. But I want to keep it short. So what I did is I developed another podcast with those 6 principles in it, as well as a PDF that breaks it down. Now, here's the news flash and a bit of a mind bender. None of those principles is extra hard or hidden or kind of this knowledge out of this universe or something like that. They're all very obvious. They're all very simple. They're all very doable. But most people don't do them because they're just not aware about them. Now, if you become aware about them, and whoever you're buying or selling from is not, that gives you a big advantage in the market. So if you know about them, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. Give us a call. We'll send you a PDF and my podcast on that so you can be educated with that. Thanks once again for tuning in. I hope these insights have added some value to you, and I look forward to be developing trust with you and potentially earning an opportunity to build a small relationship and do something in business. And if we did not get to that point, that's still okay. I hope this podcast will serve you at whatever time, with whomever or wherever you go do business. Take care and all the best to you. My name is Sat Manju with eXp Realty. 604-308-6757 is my personal number, and I still pick up the phone and I answer the call. Feel free to reach out if you need to. Bye for now.